The dream always began with the cold. It seeped into her bones, crawling beneath her skin like something alive. The forest was drenched in mist and silence, the kind that breathed decay and secrets. A crimson moon bled across a starless sky, washing everything in rust and sorrow. Maren couldn't move, couldn't breathe, only watch. He was there again, always there, the Alpha King, kneeling in the mud, surrounded by ruin, his armor shattered, his breath a wet, broken sound that clawed at the night, and his eyes, those eyes, icy blue like frozen storms, locked on something she couldn't see. Until she realized they were fixed on her. She was only a ghost here, a whisper in this terrible vision, but he saw her, somehow, always saw her. His blood darkened the ground, a slow river of red that shimmered beneath the dying light. He raised a trembling hand toward her, fingers streaked with dirt and steel. His lips parted, breath trembling. A single word escaped him, a name, Maren. The sound of it broke her every time, a name spoken as if it were his last prayer, a plea, a goodbye, and then silence. The world turned to ash. The moon shattered. The forest screamed. Maren woke with a gasp, the echo of his dying voice still wrapped around her heart. The small cottage was dark, only the embers in the hearth flickering weakly. Her hands shook as she pressed them against her chest, feeling her heart hammering beneath her palm. It wasn't just a dream. It never was. She had seen his death 100 times, every night, every breath. The Alpha King's final moment haunted her like a curse. She pushed herself up, brushing sweat-damp curls from her face. The scent of herbs, rain, and something faintly metallic filled the air. She was a healer, by birth, by choice, by something older than she could explain. And yet she couldn't stop the vision of him from returning. A stranger. A king she had never met, and yet somehow he whispered her name like he'd always known her. Outside, the forest whispered too. Wind through the leaves, soft and cold. The moonlight cut through her window like a blade of glass. Maren, she could still hear it. She pulled her shawl tighter, staring into the fire. Somewhere beyond these woods lay the borders of the Lycan Kingdom, his kingdom. The place her visions belonged to. The place she had sworn never to go. But something deep inside her, something ancient, was stirring. It whispered of fate, of danger, of love twisted by destiny. Far from the quiet forest, the Alpha King himself woke from the same dream. His breath came hard, heavy. The scent of iron still clung to him. His bed was soaked, his skin cold as though death had truly touched him. He rose from the sheets in silence, his eyes catching their reflection in the mirror across the room. Storm gray, haunted. Every night the same dream. Every night the same girl. Her name lingered on his tongue, even when he didn't remember speaking it aloud. Maren. The sound made something deep within him ache. He had never met her, never seen her outside that cursed dream. But he knew, in the way wolves know the scent of their mate, that she was real, and that somehow she held the key to his death. He ran a hand through his dark hair, the muscles of his jaw tight. The court healers had told him the dreams were just echoes of exhaustion, of war, of too much blood spilled. But he knew better. He was the Alpha King. His instincts were never wrong. And something or someone was calling him from beyond the woods, from the place where the moon bled red. The council chamber waited. His generals knelt before him, speaking of border raids and rogue wolves, but his thoughts were elsewhere. "Your Majesty," one of them asked hesitantly. "You seem distracted," his gaze snapped up. "Have our scouts reported any signs of healers in the western forests?" The men exchanged uncertain glances. "Healers, sire?" "Yes." His voice cut through the air like steel. A girl, alone, near the riverlands. They hesitated, and in that hesitation, he heard the faintest whisper of destiny drawing nearer. One of them finally spoke. "There are rumors, my lord. A woman in the woods who can heal wounds that no magic can touch." The Alpha's pulse quickened. A woman who could heal anything, except the death she saw coming. He stood abruptly. "Prepare the riders," he said. "We ride at dawn." The generals bowed low, confused but obedient. He turned away from them, back toward the night that howled beyond the castle walls. The moon outside was crimson again, just like in the dream. And somewhere, miles away, a healer woke with tears in her eyes, whispering his name into the dark. But destiny had already begun its hunt. And when the Alpha King came for the healer, he would find far more than a cure. He would find the girl who knew how he would die, and she would find the man whose death she had loved long before she ever met him. The morning came in shades of steel and frost. Mist hung over the river like breath caught between fear and hope. The forest was waking, yet something in its silence felt different today. Watchful, waiting. Marin knelt by the water's edge, her hands submerged in the cold stream. Silver light shimmered through her fingers as she whispered an old healing charm. The herbs in her basket glowed faintly, pulsing with life beneath her touch. Her heart should have been calm, but it wasn't. The dream hadn't left her this time. It clung to her, echoing behind every heartbeat. The Alpha King's voice, soft and broken, kept finding its way back to her ears. Marin, she closed her eyes, whispering back into the wind. Stop calling me. But it was useless. Her power had always been tied to the things she could not change. The wounded she could heal, the lost she could comfort. But fate? Fate was never kind to those who saw too much. The sound of hooves broke her thought. She froze. It came from beyond the ridge, slow, measured, heavy. The kind of sound that didn't belong to a traveler or a lost villager. It was the rhythm of trained soldiers. Her pulse quickened. No one ever came this deep into the forest. No one dared. She rose, wiping her hands, eyes scanning the mist. Birds erupted from the trees, then silence again. Marin? A soft voice called from behind her. It was old Mira, her mentor, her only companion since childhood. The older woman's pale hair was braided back, her green eyes filled with quiet worry. You felt it too, didn't you? Marin asked softly. Mira nodded once. They're coming. The wolves, Marin's throat tightened. Why now? Because destiny is impatient, child, Mira said, clutching her shawl. And the moon has chosen its moment. Marin wanted to argue, to deny it. But before she could, a sharp howl cut through the valley. Long, powerful, commanding, not just any howl, the howl of an alpha. Her knees weakened. Her skin prickled with power that wasn't her own. He was here. The man from her dreams. The one who died every night before her eyes. And now, he was coming for her. Far beyond the trees, the Alpha King rode with his pack. The forest air was colder than steel, but his blood burned hot. Each breath came heavy with the scent of earth and old magic. His wolf stirred restlessly beneath his skin, pacing, growling, sensing the pull that had haunted them both for weeks. She was near. He could feel her. His horse slowed as they reached the river bend. The scent of wild thyme and crushed rose lingered in the air. Healer's scent. The king's jaw tightened. He dismounted silently, his boots sinking into the damp earth. Around him, his guards spread out, but his voice was low, steady. Stay back. She'll come to me, they hesitated. My king, I said, stay back. His tone left no room for question. He moved forward alone, eyes scanning the mist. The forest watched him, as though holding its breath. He could hear her heartbeat, soft, frantic, long before he saw her. And then he did. She stepped from behind a thicket, sunlight threading through her hair like gold spun from fire. Her eyes, green, storm-touched, locked on his, and in that single moment, the world stilled. Time folded between them. He had seen her before, bleeding into the light of a dying moon. But now she stood alive, fragile and fierce all at once, and he realized something terrifying. The girl from his death dream was real. Who are you? His voice was deep, raw. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her mind flooded with every image of his death she'd ever seen. His blood, his broken armor, his eyes going still. And now, those same eyes were staring at her, alive. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. He took a step closer. You know me. She shook her head too fast. No, yes. His voice was low, dangerous. You said my name before I spoke it. Her breath caught. Because you said mine first, he froze. The forest seemed to lean closer. I don't understand, he murmured. Marin's voice trembled. You will, when the blood moon rises again. And with that, she turned, fleeing into the trees. He called after her, but she was gone, like mist dissolving into morning. His guards rushed toward him. Sire, are you hurt? He didn't answer. He was staring into the woods, his heart thundering. For the first time in years, he felt fear. Not of war, not of death, but of her. That night, Marin couldn't sleep. The air in her cottage crackled with something restless. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him again. Not dying this time, but alive, angry, confused, beautiful. Her heart ached in ways she didn't understand. Mira watched her from across the table, stirring tea. He's found you, Marin whispered. I didn't think he would come so soon. Mira sighed. Fate waits for no one, child. The Alpha King carries a curse in his blood. And you. She reached over, taking Marin's trembling hands. You are bound to it. Marin's eyes filled with tears. I don't want this, nor did he. But the moon writes its own story. Outside, thunder rolled low in the distance. The scent of rain filled the air. Marin looked toward the forest, her pulse unsteady. Somewhere out there, the Alpha King stood beneath the storm, staring at the same moon. And though neither spoke the words aloud, both felt the same thing. That destiny had begun to move, and there was no turning back. As the night deepened, a single drop of rain slid down her window. It looked like blood under the red moonlight, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, long and low, echoing the promise of what was coming. The hunt had begun. The rain came softly that night, not as a storm, but as a whisper. The forest exhaled beneath it, the trees sighing, the earth drinking, the world resetting itself. Yet inside Marin's cottage, everything felt suspended in time. The fire burned low. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time she blinked, she saw him again. That impossible man, that haunting voice. The Alpha King. Alive. Real. His eyes had the same frozen fire she'd seen in her visions. But there had been something else, too. Something the dream had never shown her. A pulse, a soul, a heartbeat that called to her own. She pressed her palms to her chest, whispering into the silence. Why me? Outside, thunder rolled. The herbs on her shelf trembled, their faint glow flickering as if afraid. The air itself carried weight, thick with old power. The moonlight cut through the window, washing her in silver. And beneath her skin, something moved. A sting. A burn. Marin gasped, pulling down her sleeve. Her wrist glowed faintly pulsing with light. A mark she had never seen before, shaped like a crescent moon intertwined with a wolf's claw. What is this? She breathed, staring as it shimmered, then faded. Mira appeared in the doorway, her expression pale as ash. You've been marked. Marked? Marin whispered. By what? Mira's gaze softened with sorrow. By who? She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving Marin's wrist. The Alpha King has found you, and fate has claimed you both. Marin shook her head, voice trembling. No, I don't belong to anyone. You don't, Mira said gently. But destiny doesn't ask permission. Lightning flashed, painting their faces white and gold. Marin clenched her fists. If this mark ties me to his death, I'll find a way to break it. Mira's silence was heavy. Breaking fate, she murmured, always comes with a cost. Far across the forest, the Alpha King stood on a cliff overlooking the valley. Rain slid down his armor, his cloak heavy with water, but he barely felt it. His mind was chaos. That girl, that healer, her voice still echoed inside him. The way she'd said his name like she'd spoken it 1,000 times before, the way fear and sorrow had tangled together in her eyes. He pressed a hand to his chest. The skin beneath his armor burned faintly, just above his heart. He pulled aside the leather plate and froze. A faint mark had appeared there, the same crescent and claw symbol glowing dimly beneath his skin. He swore under his breath. "What sorcery is this?" The pack beta stepped forward. "Sire, your chest. Don't speak of it." His voice was low, sharp, not to anyone. "But if it's a curse, then it's mine to bear." The wind howled, tearing through his hair. He closed his eyes for a moment, the scent of the forest heavy with rain and her memory. He didn't know what she was, witch, healer, omen, but he couldn't ignore the truth clawing at his soul. He needed to see her again, not just to understand the curse, but because something deep inside him, the beast, the man, the king, all wanted her. The next morning, Maren woke with her wrist still sore. The mark had dimmed, but it hadn't vanished. She sat at the table, her untouched tea gone cold, her thoughts tangled in dread. Mira watched her quietly. "He'll come again, you know. I'll be gone before he does. Run where, child? There is no place the Alpha King's scent cannot find." Maren's voice broke. "Then I'll hide where fate can't," Mira smiled sadly. "Fate always finds its way home." Before Maren could answer, a knock echoed through the cottage door. Once, twice, then silence. Her breath hitched. No one knocked this deep in the forest. Not unless they were lost, or hunting something. "Stay here," Mira whispered, stepping toward the door. But before she reached it, the latch lifted itself. The door swung open, and there he stood, the Alpha King. Rain still clung to him, his black cloak heavy, his eyes blazing like storm fire. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then he stepped inside. "You ran," Maren's voice trembled. "You shouldn't have come." "Tell me what you are," he demanded, his voice rough but low. "Why do I see you in my sleep? Why do I bleed in your dreams?" She shook her head. "You don't want the answer." "I need the answer." His words carried command, the voice of a king, the growl of a wolf barely contained. Maren's heart thundered. "If I tell you, you'll wish you'd never found me." He took another step forward, his presence filling the room like a storm breaking through the walls. "Try me." Her eyes met his, and for the first time, she let the truth spill from her lips. "I've seen you die," she whispered, "every night. The same way, the same wound, the same moon." His breath caught, her voice shook, tears rising. "You reach for me, you say my name, and then the world ends." Silence, heavy, endless. He stared at her, not as a king now, but as a man hearing his fate spoken aloud. "Finally," he said, voice rough as gravel. "And yet here I stand, alive, for now." Her answer was soft, but it cut deeper than any blade. Outside, the rain stopped. The air was sharp with the scent of earth and fear. The Alpha turned away, his jaw tight. "Then tell me how to stop it." Maren closed her eyes. "You can't. There's always a way." Her tears fell silently. "Not with this one, because the moment you try to escape it, the curse will find another way to end you." He turned back to her, eyes burning. "Then we'll fight it together." Maren's breath faltered. "Together?" "Yes." His voice softened for the first time. Rough, sincere, almost pleading. "You said you've seen my end, healer. Then help me change it." Her lips trembled. "You don't understand what you're asking for." He stepped closer. So close she could feel his breath, smell the wild forest clinging to his skin. "Then make me understand." And before she could pull away, his hand brushed hers. A jolt surged through both of them, fierce, electric, alive. The mark on her wrist flared with light. His chest burned in answer. They gasped, locked in that strange, blazing tether of fate. And in that moment, the room filled with the scent of moonlight and thunder. Two souls bound by something older than time. Two hearts cursed by the same prophecy. Maren tore her hand away, trembling. "You shouldn't have touched me!" He stared at her, stunned. What was that? "The curse," she whispered. "Now it knows you've found me." Outside, wolves howled in the distance, low, mournful, endless. The alpha's expression hardened. "Then let it come." Marin met his eyes, her fear and fire colliding. "You don't understand. It's not coming for you," he frowned. "Then who?" "It's coming for me." Lightning flashed again, splitting the sky in two, and in that searing light, the mark on her wrist flared like fire, as if the moon itself had awoken. The wind had a strange taste that night, like rain and prophecy. The air itself felt alive, whispering secrets that only the moon understood. Marin sat by the hearth, her wrist still glowing faintly beneath the thin layer of bandage she'd wrapped around it. The Alpha King stood a few feet away, too still, too quiet. The firelight kissed his face, carving his strength into shadow and flame. Neither spoke for a long time. The world outside was asleep, but inside, something ancient had awakened. Marin finally broke the silence. "You should leave before dawn." He didn't move. "And let the curse take you alone?" Her gaze snapped up. "It's me it wants. You'll be safer without me." His jaw tightened. "I don't run from danger," she gave a bitter laugh. "You think this is danger? You haven't seen what I've seen." He stepped closer, his boots soft against the wooden floor. "Then show me," her breath hitched. "You don't want to see it." He leaned closer, his voice dropping low. "I've seen kingdoms burn. I've buried brothers and buried my own heart in war. There's nothing left in this world that can scare me." She looked up and met his eyes. Cold and stormy, yet there was something breaking inside them too. Marin whispered, "This will." And before she could stop herself, she took his hand. The moment their skin touched, the world vanished. A rush of images, light blood, screams. The battlefield, the crimson moon, his body broken and kneeling, her own voice calling his name through the chaos, his last breath whispering hers. The vision ripped through them both like fire. He jerked back, gasping, his hand clutching his chest, where the mark burned brighter than ever. Marin stumbled, tears streaming down her face. Now he'd seen it, his death, and her curse. The Alpha's breath came ragged. That was me. Marin nodded weakly. "The night of the blood moon. It always ends the same." He stared into the fire, his jaw tight, his heart a storm. "So I die in your arms?" Her voice trembled. "You call my name like you've known me your whole life, and then you're gone." He closed his eyes, the weight of fate pressing on his chest. For a long time, neither spoke. Then softly, he whispered, "Then let's change the ending." Marin shook her head. "You can't rewrite the moon." He looked at her, his eyes fierce. "Maybe not, but I can defy it." The hours slipped away. Outside, the moon sank lower, pale and watchful. Marin sat by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass, her thoughts a storm. She felt him move behind her, slow, deliberate. The air changed when he was close. Thicker, heavier, charged. "You shouldn't stay here," she murmured. He stopped just behind her, his reflection dark and steady in the glass. "I'm not leaving until I understand this bond between us." "There is no bond," she said too quickly. "Then what is this?" His voice softened, almost breaking. "When you hurt, I feel it. When you dream, I see it. When you speak my name, it pulls me like gravity." Her throat tightened. "That's the curse, or destiny." She turned to him, her green eyes glistening. "Don't twist it into something it's not." He held her gaze, his voice low and rough. "What if it is something more?" For a heartbeat, time stopped. The fire crackled softly, the scent of rain drifting between them. He stepped closer, close enough for her to feel his warmth, his breath. "Tell me," he whispered, "if this isn't real, why does it feel like I've known you forever?" Marin's eyes fell shut. The pull between them was unbearable, like the universe had spun around this moment 1,000 times before, waiting for it to repeat. Her voice was barely a breath. "Because maybe you have." The words hung between them, fragile and infinite. Far beyond the cottage, the forest stirred. Wolves prowled under the red-tinged moon, their howls carrying warnings across the wind. The pack could feel it. Their king's bond had shifted. Magic older than blood was awakening. The curse had noticed. Marin couldn't sleep that night. Neither could he. The Alpha stood guard near the window, eyes tracing every shadow, every flicker of light. She watched him from the bed, her pulse betraying her calm. He looked carved from battle and sorrow, strength wrapped around grief. But beneath that armor there was something gentler, something she wished she hadn't seen. "You don't have to protect me," she whispered. He didn't look back. "Maybe I do. Why?" His hand brushed the window pane, rain misting over his fingers. "Because when you touched me, for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a weapon." The words sank deep. Marin turned away, blinking tears she didn't want him to see. "You think fate chose you to save me," she whispered. "But maybe it chose me to end you." He turned then, slow, deliberate, and crossed the space between them. "If that's true," he murmured, "then I'll still choose you." Her breath broke. "You don't mean that. I do. I'll take the curse, the blood, the prophecy, all of it." His voice trembled now, raw and human. "If it means you'll stand beside me when it comes." She looked up, her heart warring with every truth she'd ever known. "You don't understand what love costs when death is waiting." He smiled faintly, pain in his eyes. "Then teach me." And just like that, the air between them changed. Not with words, not with fate, but with something silent and ancient, a promise that neither dared to name. Outside, thunder rolled again, and the red moon broke through the clouds. The mark on her wrist flared once more, matching the glow on his chest. Their lights pulsed together, one heartbeat, one curse, one fate. Marine whispered into the night. "The moon hears everything." The Alpha looked at her, voice low. "Then let it hear this." He placed his hand over his heart, where the mark burned. "By my blood, by my wolf, by my name, I will not die the way it shows me. I swear it." The cottage trembled. The fire flared. The moon's oath was made. Marin gasped, clutching her wrist. The mark seared brighter, answering the vow. "You fool," she whispered. "You've bound us both now." His gaze softened. "Then we're bound." And in that strange, terrible, beautiful moment, fate smiled, because love had entered the curse, and nothing could ever be the same again. The moon faded behind storm clouds, leaving only the whisper of thunder in its wake. The forest was still, too still, as if it were holding its breath for what was coming. Inside the cottage, Marin stood at the window long after the Alpha King had fallen asleep near the fire. His armor lay discarded beside him, his hand resting over the faintly glowing mark on his chest. Even in sleep, he looked restless, like a beast pacing behind his ribs. She watched him quietly. There was something terrifying about seeing power so undone. The vow he'd spoken, the moon's oath, still echoed in the room, humming through the air like trapped lightning. It had bound their souls together, his fate to hers, his curse to her heart. And though she hated herself for it, she couldn't look away from him. His face, usually carved in command, was softer in sleep. His lashes trembled. His lips moved faintly, whispering words she couldn't hear. Her healer's instinct told her to care for him. Her heart told her to run, because the Alpha King she saw now was no longer entirely human. The curse was already working. He woke with a start just before dawn, gasping, drenched in sweat. His hands clawed at the earth beneath him. Marin rushed forward. "You're burning up!" He grabbed her wrist before she could touch him. His grip was iron. His eyes, not human anymore. They glowed faint gold rimmed in shadow. "Don't," he growled, voice low and broken. "Don't come closer." Her pulse stuttered. "You're fighting it, aren't you?" He looked away, his breath shaking. "The wolf, it's changing. I can feel it clawing inside me." Marin's fear melted into something else, pity. She knelt slowly, keeping her voice soft. "The curse is feeding on your vow. The more you fight fate, the more it fights back." His head dropped, his voice raw. "Then tell me how to stop it." "You can't stop it," she whispered. "But maybe I can slow it down." He turned toward her then, eyes burning, desperate. "Then do it," she hesitated. It'll hurt, he gave a rough laugh. Pain and I are old friends. Marin took a steadying breath. Then hold still. She placed her palms against his chest. The heat was unbearable. Beneath her touch, his heart thundered like a wild drum, his body trembling with restrained fury. She whispered the old words, a healer's language, half magic, half prayer. Her hands glowed, golden light sinking into his skin. The mark between them pulsed, and his breathing began to steady. Until her power met his curse. A surge of energy slammed between them, fierce, blinding. Marin cried out, falling forward into his arms. The Alpha's head snapped back, his growl echoing through the room, part human, part beast. Her healing had touched the darkness inside him, and it recognized her. When the light faded, he was holding her. One hand around her waist, the other tangled in her hair. His breathing was ragged, but his eyes, they'd returned to gray. Human again. Are you hurt? He whispered hoarsely. She shook her head, dazed. You? He gave a faint smirk. Still alive, still cursed. Marin pulled away, trembling. That shouldn't have worked. My power doesn't heal curses. He looked at her, something fierce flickering in his gaze. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just recognized what we already are. Her heart stumbled. And what's that? His voice softened. Connected. Marin turned from him, hiding the storm behind her eyes. You're a king. I'm just a healer cursed by the moon. You don't owe me your heart. I didn't say I did, he said quietly, but it seems it's already yours. She froze, and for a heartbeat, the world went still. The days that followed blurred like dreams. The Alpha stayed in her cottage, his soldiers waiting beyond the forest, forbidden to enter. Every sunrise found him stronger, but quieter. Something inside him was changing. Sometimes, Marin caught him staring at her, not with the cold scrutiny of a ruler, but the aching wonder of a man who couldn't believe she was real. And sometimes, when her hands brushed his skin to tend a wound, he would shiver like her touch burned and healed him all at once. But with every moment of peace, the shadows grew heavier outside. Wolves began appearing at the tree line, dark, silent, watching. Their eyes glowed red in the mist, the curse's servants, and each night, Marin could feel it tightening its grip. The mark on her wrist ached with phantom pain. Her dreams darker, bloodier. One evening, the Alpha found her standing by the river, her reflection trembling under the silver sky. You're hiding something from me, he said quietly. She didn't look up. You already know what matters. He stepped closer. No, Marin, I see it every time you wake up screaming. There's more you're not telling me. Her lips pressed together. If I do, you'll hate me. He reached out, his hand hovering near her cheek. Try me. Marin looked into his eyes, and this time she didn't hide. The curse that kills you? It's tied to me. My blood, my power, my birth. He froze. What do you mean? I was born on the same night the moon cursed your line. My mother tried to protect me, but prophecy marked me before I could even walk. The moon decreed that my power would be your salvation, and your destruction. He stared at her, the truth sinking like stone. So to save me, I might have to kill you. Her voice broke. The words shattered something between them. He stepped back, eyes dark, the wolf stirring behind them. So that's it? I'm doomed by the same hands I can't stop reaching for? Tears filled her eyes. I didn't choose this. I didn't either, he roared, his voice shaking the trees. The beast beneath his skin surged. His claws flashed for a split second before he forced them back, breathing hard. Marin took a step forward, whispering, You're losing control. I know, he panted. Every time I get near you, it gets worse. Because the curse feeds on emotion, on love. His voice cracked. Then tell me how to stop loving you. Her heart broke with those words. The forest fell silent again. And then, she did the only thing she could. She reached up, touched his face, and whispered, Then don't. Just fight beside me instead. He stared at her, fierce, wounded, in awe. Marin, he whispered, her name more prayer than word. and as their foreheads touched, the marks on their bodies pulsed in sync once more, wild, dangerous, alive. The curse trembled in the shadows, watching, waiting, because love was never meant to save them. It was meant to destroy them. That night, when Maren finally slept, she dreamed of the future again. But this time, the vision changed. The Alpha King was still dying beneath the crimson moon. But she was no longer standing apart as a ghost. She was kneeling beside him, holding his hand, and when he whispered her name, it wasn't a goodbye. It was a vow. The night air was thick with whispers. The forest no longer felt like a refuge. It felt like a living thing, watching them both. Maren stood at the edge of the clearing, her cloak fluttering in the wind, her heart still echoing with the Alpha King's last words. "Then tell me how to stop loving you." She could still hear them, still feel the way his voice had broken around them. And it terrified her, because she had no answer. Behind her, the cottage door creaked open. His voice followed, quiet but commanding. "Maren," she didn't turn. "You should rest." "I can't." His footsteps stopped a few paces away. "When I close my eyes, I see you dying in my arms." Her chest tightened. "Then maybe you should stop looking." A pause, long, heavy. Then, "I can't stop that either." Maren exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "You talk as if love can undo death." "No," he said softly, stepping closer. "But maybe it can rewrite fate." His words brushed her skin like the wind, and for one wild heartbeat, she almost believed him. Almost. They left the forest 2 nights later. The Alpha had received word from his general. The capital was burning. The curse wasn't waiting anymore, yes, it was spreading. Wolves twisted by the moon's magic were attacking the borders, howling for their king. But he didn't leave her behind. He couldn't. "Where I go, you go," he said when she tried to argue. "The mark won't let us separate for long. If it's bound us, then we'll face this together." Maren wanted to scream at him, that he didn't understand, that she was the reason he was dying. But something deeper stopped her. Something that whispered that maybe, just maybe, destiny wasn't as cruel as it seemed. So she rode beside him. Through forests and rivers, through lands haunted by silence and storm. And every night, when the fires burned low, she could feel his gaze on her, heavy with words he never spoke. The castle rose before them like a wound in the earth. Black stone, cracked towers, banners torn by wind. Once a symbol of power, now a tomb waiting for its king. The people bowed as he passed, but their eyes flicked to Maren, wary, afraid. "She's the witch," someone whispered. "She carries the curse." The Alpha's jaw tightened. "Silence," he commanded, and even the air obeyed. He took Maren's hand then, right there, in front of them all, and led her into the great hall. The torches flickered. The shadows deepened, and something old awoke. That night, she wandered the corridors alone. The stones whispered with the memories of those who'd died there. Kings before him, wives who'd vanished under blood moons. Her steps led her to a sealed door, carved with symbols she recognized from her mother's book. The language of the moon. She pressed her palm to it. The mark on her wrist flared, and the door shuddered open. Inside was a chamber filled with light. Not sunlight, moonlight. Cold, silver, alive. At its center stood a mirror, tall, cracked, carved in bone. And in its reflection, not her, but a woman with her face, her eyes, her voice, yet older, stronger, wreathed in shadow. "Who are you?" Maren whispered. The reflection smiled, slow, knowing. "I am what you were meant to become." Maren stepped back, heart pounding. "You're lying." The woman's eyes flashed gold. "The blood that curses him runs through you. You are the moon's heir, Maren, the queen of shadows, born to balance life and death by ending the one you love." Maren shook her head. "No, I heal. I save. You were born to heal, until love made you forget what you are." Tears burned her eyes. "You don't know me." The reflection leaned closer, voice like silk and thunder. "I am you, And when the moon turns red again, you will choose his life or your soul. The mirror shattered. Maren screamed, light exploding around her. And then everything went black. When she woke, she was in his arms. The Alpha King's face hovered above hers, pale with worry. "Maren, look at me." His hand cupped her cheek. "What happened?" She swallowed hard. "She showed me what I'll become." His brow furrowed. "Who?" "My reflection." He hesitated, then pulled her against his chest, holding her like the world was ending. "Whatever she showed you, whatever fate thinks it owns, I'll tear it apart before I let it take you." Her voice trembled. "You can't fight destiny. Watch me." He pressed his forehead to hers, their breaths mingling. "If the moon wants war, she'll get one." And as he spoke, the storm outside the castle roared to life, thunder shaking the walls, lightning striking the towers. The curse had heard him. The moon had too, and somewhere above, beneath a blood-red sky, the first omen appeared, a shadow in the shape of a crown, rising from the light. The prophecy had begun. That night, Maren stood by the window, watching the crimson glow in the clouds. Her heart whispered one truth she could no longer deny. The Alpha King wasn't just her love. He was her undoing, and when the time came, she would have to decide whether to save him or save the world. The castle was no longer silent. It breathed, with soldiers, with iron, with fear. Every corridor echoed with the sound of armor and prayers. The Alpha King's army was gathering, their blades forged for a war no one truly understood. And at the center of it all, Maren. She stood at the balcony overlooking the training grounds, the wind pulling at her hair. Below, warriors shouted oaths of loyalty to their king. The air burned with the scent of steel and sweat. But to her, it smelled like death. The moon had shown her what was coming, and no matter how many soldiers he summoned, nothing could stop it. "Your eyes don't lie," came a voice behind her. The Alpha King stepped into the light, his dark cloak fluttering. The mark on his chest shimmered faintly beneath his tunic, still bound to hers. "You've seen something again," he said. Maren didn't turn. "I see too much. Tell me." Her lips trembled. "I saw blood. Not from battle, from sacrifice. And it's yours." He moved closer, his presence wrapping around her like a storm. "Then we'll change it." "You can't change prophecy," she whispered. "I've changed kingdoms," he said fiercely. "I've broken men who thought themselves gods. I will not bow to the moon." Maren turned to him then, eyes shining with unshed tears. "But you'll bow to love?" He froze. "If it's yours, yes." The words hit her like an arrow. She looked away quickly, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. "You don't know what you're saying," she murmured. "Love doesn't save kings, it destroys them." He smiled faintly, then let it destroy me beautifully. The next morning, the Alpha King summoned his council. The generals, the priests, the old scholars, all knelt before him in the war room, lit by a single crimson torch. "The curse spreads," said one of the priests. "Villages fall into shadow before dawn. The moon's wolves answer no mortal command." The Alpha's gaze was sharp, his voice a blade. "Then we give them something else to fear." He turned to his war table, where a blood-red seal waited. "Tonight," he said, "we make the blood oath." The room fell silent. Even Maren, standing in the shadows behind him, felt the air tremble. "The blood oath?" she whispered. "You can't." He looked at her over his shoulder. "It binds the army to me. Body, soul, and fate. If I fall, they fall. If I rise, they rise. No curse will break what is sealed in blood." Maren's voice broke. "You'll tie your life to theirs. You'll doom them if the prophecy comes true." He stepped closer, his eyes fierce and haunted. "Then let them share my fate. Let the moon see that I am not afraid." Her hand reached for him before she could stop it. "Don't do this." He took her hand gently, his thumb brushing over her pulse. "If I die, Maren, I want to die knowing I fought for something real, for someone real." Her breath hitched. "And if I'm the reason you die?" He smiled, soft, heartbreaking. Then at least I die for love, not fear. That night, beneath a blood moon sky, the blood oath was made. The soldiers stood in a circle around their king. A silver bowl rested on the altar, filled with dark wine. The Alpha King drew his blade, slicing his palm. Blood dripped into the bowl. One by one, the soldiers followed, their blood mingling with his. The air shimmered, power rising like fire. Maren felt it in her bones. The ground trembled, the torches flickered. Her heart screamed for him to stop. And then, he spoke the words. With this blood, I bind my life to yours. My heart to my people, my soul to the battle that awaits. The air cracked like thunder. Maren stumbled forward, the mark on her wrist searing. Her power surged, wild, uncontrollable, light spilling from her fingertips. Enough, she cried. You don't understand what you're invoking. But it was too late. The curse answered. A wind tore through the courtyard, howling with voices not of this world. Shadows rose from the ground, shapes of wolves, of men, of things older than death. The soldiers fell to their knees, shouting prayers. The Alpha King stood firm, his eyes glowing faintly with golden fire, and the moon. Bled in the sky. After the ritual, silence returned. Heavy, trembling. Maren found him alone in the chapel, his hands stained red, his breath shallow. You think you've won something tonight, she said softly, but all you did was make death your companion. He didn't look at her. Then at least I'll die beside her. Her heart broke in his silence. She walked closer, touched his cheek, and for the first time, he didn't pull away. Why do you keep doing this? She whispered. Why fight what you can't escape? His voice cracked. Because I see you in every nightmare, standing there, watching me die. And I'd rather burn the world than let it happen again. Tears welled in her eyes. You can't fight the vision, Alpha. He turned to her then, fierce and aching. Then change it, healer. Her breath caught. What? You said fate can't be broken, but you never said it can't be rewritten. Heal the vision, Maren. Heal me. She stepped back, terrified by the fire in his words, the desperation that felt like devotion. Rewriting fate means rewriting death. Then rewrite it, he whispered, even if it costs everything. Later that night, Maren stood before the shattered mirror once more. Her reflection waited, darker this time, her shadow self watching with cold amusement. You can't save him, it said. He was born to die beneath the crimson moon. Maren clenched her fists. Then I'll break the moon itself. The reflection smiled, proud, cruel. There it is, the Queen of Shadows. You've finally remembered who you are. The glass glowed, silver cracks spreading across its surface. If you break the curse, the reflection said, you'll take it inside you. His death will become yours. Maren's eyes burned. So be it. The mirror shattered again, but this time the light didn't fade. It poured into her, burning, wild, unstoppable. She screamed, her power flaring, shaking the castle walls. The mark on her wrist ignited, connecting her to the Alpha King across the hall. He fell to his knees as the same light tore through him. Their bond, the healer and the king, had awakened something ancient, something even the moon feared. When the light faded, he was on the floor gasping. She knelt beside him, trembling. What have you done? He whispered. Maren met his gaze, her voice soft, steady, resolute. I've taken your death. His eyes widened in horror. No, she pressed a trembling hand to his lips. You wanted to fight fate. Now you have me as your weapon. The mark between them pulsed once, and vanished. Their bond had changed. Their fates had crossed, and from that night onward, if one bled, the other would not. The prophecy had shifted, but the cost had only begun. The first thing Maren felt when she woke was fire. Not around her, inside her. It burned through her veins, bright and wild, a living light clawing beneath her skin. Her breath hitched. Her hands trembled. The mark that once bound her to the Alpha King was gone, but something far worse pulsed in its place. The curse. She could feel it, alive, whispering, watching. And in that whisper came a voice, ancient and cruel, the same one that had haunted her dreams. The price of love is never life, child. It is always soul. Her eyes snapped open, and the world blazed silver. She stumbled from her bed, clutching her chest. Every heartbeat felt like thunder, every breath a storm. Outside the door, she heard footsteps, hurried, desperate. Then the door burst open. The Alpha King stood there, chest rising, eyes frantic. "Marin!" His voice cracked with something more than fear, something that sounded like guilt. She looked up at him, pale, trembling. "It's inside me now." He moved to her side instantly, catching her as her knees buckled. "Easy, easy," he murmured, holding her close. "Tell me what you did." "I took your death," she whispered. "But it's not just death, it's her, the moon, her curse, her will, her power. It's in me now," he froze. His grip on her tightened. "You shouldn't have done that." "I had to," she breathed. "You would have died. And now you will." She looked up at him, her eyes glowing faint silver. "Maybe fate chose wrong this time." His jaw clenched. "Don't talk like that. We'll find a way." Marin's voice softened. "We already did. You're alive." He shook his head, eyes burning. "That's not enough if I lose you." For days, the palace lived in uneasy silence. The war outside had paused, as if even the curse itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Marin's body began to change. Her healing power grew unstable, too bright, too strong. Every wound she touched mended instantly, but left her weaker. Her hands glowed even when she slept, the light flickering like dying starlight. The Alpha King never left her side. He sat beside her bed, his armor set aside, his crown forgotten. He read to her, spoke softly to her when nightmares came, and sometimes, when she was too weak to answer, he would just hold her hand, as if he could keep her anchored to the world. But she could feel herself fading. Not dying, transforming. The silver flame, the old text had called it. A rare, forbidden magic that only appeared when a healer bound themselves to a cursed soul. It burned away mortality, until only light remained. One night, Marin woke to find the Alpha King watching her. The firelight played across his face. Strong, solemn, beautiful in a way that made her heart ache. "You haven't slept," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I was afraid you'd disappear if I blinked." She tried to sit up, but her body trembled. He caught her easily, steadying her against him. "I'm not disappearing," she said softly. He looked at her then. Really looked. "You're glowing, Marin," she glanced down. The light beneath her skin shimmered faintly, tracing her veins like molten silver. "It's the curse," she said. "Or maybe, what's left of me." His hand brushed her cheek. "No, it's what you've become." She laughed weakly. "What's that supposed to mean?" He leaned closer, voice low, rough, full of something she couldn't name. "It means you're the most beautiful miracle I've ever failed to deserve." Her eyes burned. "Don't say that. It's true." She looked away, fighting tears. "If I die, promise me something." His expression hardened instantly. "Don't. Promise me," she whispered again. He shook his head. "No, you don't get to ask that. Not when I've just found you." Her voice broke. "Please." He closed his eyes, exhaling shakily. "What do you want me to promise?" "That you won't let this curse destroy you again," she said. "That you'll live even if I can't." He stared at her, the words hitting like daggers. "How can I live if my heart doesn't?" She smiled sadly. "Then make me your reason to keep breathing. Not your reason to stop." The next day, the priest came to the throne room with a prophecy scroll in hand. "The silver flame has awakened," he said, "and with it, the end begins." The Alpha King rose from his throne, his voice cold and sharp. "Say what you mean. If she burns, the curse dies with her. But if you save her, the moon will rise again, and the world will drown in shadow." Silence fell. The king's hands curled into fists. "You're asking me to choose?" The priest bowed his head. "The prophecy already has." He turned away, unable to speak, the weight of the world pressing on his chest. Marin stood in the doorway, pale but composed. "So it's true," he turned, startled. "You shouldn't be here," she smiled faintly. "Seems I shouldn't be anywhere lately." His voice softened. "Marine, I heard," she said quietly. "If I die, the curse dies. If I live, it spreads." His voice cracked. "I won't let them touch you." She stepped forward, her eyes glowing softly. "And if protecting me means ending everything you swore to save?" He said nothing. "Tell me," she whispered. "Are you willing to lose your kingdom for me?" He reached out, and for a heartbeat the answer was in his eyes. Yes, but he couldn't say it. That night, the moon rose higher than ever before, crimson and vast. Marin stood in the courtyard, silver light streaming from her skin. Her hair lifted in the wind, her eyes shining like twin stars. The Alpha King approached slowly, every step a battle. "Don't do this," he said. She smiled, soft, heartbreakingly calm. "You taught me how to fight fate. Now let me finish what I started. You'll die, then let me die for something real." He reached her, his voice trembling. "Marin," she placed her hand over his heart. "You once told me pain and you were old friends." He laughed through a broken breath. "I lied. I never knew pain until you." Her tears glowed silver as they fell. "Then let's make it mean something." And before he could stop her, she kissed him. The world erupted in light. The silver flame blazed. It swept through the castle, through the skies, through the curse itself, purging shadow, burning away the moon's will. The wolves howled. The stars wept. The prophecy screamed, and in the middle of it all, Marin stood, her hands raised, her body made of light. The Alpha King fell to his knees, shouting her name. But his voice drowned beneath the storm. When the light finally faded, only silence remained, and where Marin had stood, there was nothing. Only a single white feather glowing faintly on the ground. The Alpha King lifted it in shaking hands. His whisper broke the night. "I told you love would destroy me beautifully." The castle had never been so silent. Even the wind refused to enter its halls. The great fires were cold. The moon above hung low and colorless, as if even she mourned. And the Alpha King, the man who had commanded armies, defied gods, and broken curses, now sat upon his throne like a ghost of himself. The white feather lay in his palm, motionless. He had not slept. He had not spoken. He only sat there, listening to the echo of her voice, the one that would never fade. "Make me your reason to keep breathing." He clutched the feather tighter. "But how can I breathe?" he whispered to the empty air, "when the air itself was you?" The kingdom began to heal. The dark wolves who had fallen under the curse now roamed free. The crops grew again. The rivers ran clear. But inside the throne room, nothing healed. Every night, the Alpha King returned to the courtyard where she had vanished. He knelt on the cold stone, searching for her in the wind, in the moonlight, in the silence. And every night, he left with empty hands, until the night the moon turned silver again. It began with a sound, soft, melodic. The whisper of a song that had no source. The Alpha King froze. His wolf stirred restlessly inside him, ears perked, heart racing. "Marin?" The air shimmered, and from that shimmer, the feather in his hand began to glow. Faintly, then fiercely. He rose, eyes wide, watching as the feather lifted from his palm and floated toward the courtyard's fountain. The light grew stronger, swirling, shaping, until the air itself seemed to take form. And then, he heard it. Her voice. "You kept your promise." He turned, breath trembling. There, standing in the fountain's reflection, was Marin. Not flesh and blood, not a ghost. Something between both. A being made of soft silver fire, eyes still the same gentle blue that had once healed him. He took a step forward, barely breathing. "Marin," she smiled sadly. "I told you I'd never leave you." He reached out, but his hand passed through her light. Pain tore across his chest. "I can't even touch you." Her glow flickered. You already did once, deep enough to stay. He swallowed hard, his voice rough. Why are you here? Her gaze softened. Because the flame doesn't die. It transforms, he frowned. I don't understand. She stepped closer, the light around her pulsing gently. When I burned the curse, I became part of what I destroyed. The flame lives on, inside you, inside every soul I touched. I'm everywhere the light touches now. His jaw clenched. That's not enough. I want you. She smiled, a tear of light sliding down her cheek. You already have me, just differently. The Alpha King's heart ached with a strange, unbearable mixture of hope and grief. Will I see you again? He whispered, her voice trembled. When the moon rises full and the wolves sing together, look to the silver wind, and I'll be there. He took a deep breath. Then I'll make sure the wolves never stop singing. She laughed softly, the sound like falling snow. That's my king. Then, as the wind stirred, her form began to fade, her glow scattering like dust among the stars. He reached out one last time, desperate. Marin. Her final words brushed against his soul. Love doesn't end, my Alpha. It only changes shape. And she was gone. Weeks passed. The kingdom returned to life, stronger than before. But the Alpha King remained changed. Quieter, calmer. No longer the man who ruled by power, but by memory. The people whispered that the silver flame blessed him still. That in battle, his enemies froze when his eyes turned silver. That when he walked through the forest at night, the air shimmered with light, as if someone unseen walked beside him. And sometimes, when the moon was full, he could hear her song carried through the wind. He'd look up at the silver glow above the trees and smile faintly. She kept her promise. The kingdom slept beneath a silver sky, and yet something moved inside the light. It began as a tremor beneath the forest floor, a heartbeat long forgotten, awakening again. The wolves lifted their heads that night, howling toward the moon that no longer bled red, but glowed with an unfamiliar warmth. The Alpha King stood on his balcony, eyes fixed on that light. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel cold. It felt alive. He whispered softly, Marine, is that you again? The wind answered in a whisper that brushed against his face like the gentlest touch. Far away, deep in the sacred woods, the world shifted. The old shrine, the one where the moon had been worshipped for centuries, began to hum with power. Inside its circle of stone and ivy, a body formed from mist and starlight. A girl, her hair white as moonfire, her heartbeat soft but steady. When her eyes opened, they were the same storm blue that had once stopped the Alpha King's breath. But she didn't know who she was. Not yet, she gasped, clutching her chest. Where am I? The forest whispered in reply. And somewhere within her heart, the faint echo of his voice murmured, You kept your promise. The Council of Wolves gathered at dawn. Old faces, battle-scarred, eyes heavy with worry. My king, General Thane said grimly. The moon's power has returned, but not the way we remember. The omens say a new spirit walks under its light. The Alpha King's gaze was distant. I felt it too, like her heartbeat inside the sky. The general hesitated. If the curse finds its way back... It's not the curse, the king interrupted. His tone softened. It's her. The others exchanged wary glances. But none dared to question him. 3 days later, a scout returned from the northern forest. Shaken, trembling, eyes wide as if he had seen a ghost. My king, he said breathlessly, falling to one knee. There's a girl in the shrine. She wears light like a crown. The forest itself bends to her. The king rose instantly. His wolf stirred restlessly beneath his skin. He didn't need to ask who it was. He already knew. The shrine was exactly as it had been in his dreams. Silent, ancient, and glimmering with silver light. She stood there, barefoot, fragile, yet radiant. The same eyes, the same heart, but something different in the way the air moved around her. When she looked up and met his gaze, the world stopped. You, she whispered, as though his name was a half-remembered prayer. He took a trembling step forward. Marin, The name fell from his lips like a vow. She frowned faintly, confusion clouding her features. Why do you look at me like you've lost me before? His heart broke all over again. Because I have. He reached out, his hand stopping inches from her cheek. I thought I'd never see you again. Her breath trembled. You speak as if we were something more than strangers. He smiled sadly. We were everything but strangers. The wind stirred between them, carrying whispers of memory, fragments of laughter, tears, promises whispered in moonlight. Marin blinked, her pupils dilating. I remember fire, she murmured. A storm. And your voice, calling my name. He nodded, voice cracking. You saved me. You saved us all. Her hand rose, trembling, brushing the mark that had once bound them. It was glowing again, faint but alive. What is this? She whispered. Our bond, he said softly. It remembers even when you don't. For a heartbeat, their souls touched. And in that touch, a flood of memory surged through her. The blood moon. The prophecy. The night she became the flame. She gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. I died. He caught her before she fell, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her against his chest. And yet you're here. Her fingers curled against his armor. Why? Why am I back? Because the moon owed you a debt, he whispered. And I prayed for her to repay it. The forest stirred, glowing softly, silver vines twisting around them. Above them, the moon brightened, the symbol of the flame appearing once more. Marin looked up, realization dawning in her eyes. She didn't bring me back for love, the Alpha King frowned. Then for what? To finish what I started. Her voice trembled. The curse may have ended, but its shadow survived. A cold wind swept through the shrine, carrying a distant howl, a sound not of wolf nor man, something in between. The Alpha King's hand went to his sword. What was that? Marin met his gaze, her expression darkening, the part of the curse that refused to die. The moon's darker child. He turned toward the forest, his wolf rising. Then we'll destroy it together. She stepped beside him, her light merging with his shadow. And for the first time, the prophecy didn't feel like doom. It felt like destiny reborn. That night, as they stood beneath the silver moon, she whispered quietly, You found me once in death. Promise you'll find me again if I'm lost. He smiled, resting his forehead against hers. Even if the world burns, I'll follow your light. And as the wolves howled in unison, the moon herself seemed to tremble, for the love that had once defied her had returned stronger than fate. The night trembled beneath a storm that had no wind. Every flame in the castle flickered, every shadow stretched longer than it should. Something had awakened. Something born from the ashes of the curse, the part that refused to die when Marin did. The old seers whispered its name, the Dark Child. A creature with no form, no mercy, only hunger, and it was coming for the Alpha King. Marin woke from her dreams screaming. Her hands glowed silver, the mark on her wrist pulsing like a heartbeat out of rhythm. The Alpha was there in an instant, pulling her close. What did you see? She gasped, trembling. A shadow, with your eyes. It wore your face. He froze. My face? She nodded. It's not a ghost. It's what the curse left behind when you broke it, the part that loved power more than peace. His jaw tightened. Then it's mine to end. She caught his hand before he could move. No, you can't fight it. It's you. He met her gaze, eyes blazing. Then I'll fight myself if I must. I won't let it touch you. The next morning, the castle shook as wolves howled from the forest below. A dark mist crept through the trees, swallowing light. Soldiers stumbled back, their armor burning with black fire. The Alpha King stood on the battlements, his silver eyes cutting through the storm. Keep them behind the walls, he roared, but in his chest, his wolf growled differently. It recognized the darkness. It knew it, because it had once been part of him. Marin appeared beside him, her white cloak glowing in the dim. I can sense it, she whispered. It's searching for you. He turned to her. Then let it find me, She shook her head fiercely. That's exactly what it wants. Your strength, your soul. If it takes you, it'll become unstoppable. He smiled grimly. Then you'll stop me. Her eyes filled with pain. Don't say that. Marin, he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. If I fall, I want to know the one who ends me is the only one I ever trusted. She stared at him, shaking. Don't make me promise that. He pressed his forehead against hers. Promise me. Tears glistened on her lashes. I promise. That night, the storm broke. The dark child came, crawling from the forest like liquid night, its body shifting, its eyes burning silver. It was him and yet not. It was his rage, his pain, his fear, everything he'd buried, made flesh. It laughed with his voice. You think love makes you strong? It makes you weak. The Alpha drew his sword, its blade glowing faintly with Marin's light. Then let my weakness destroy you, the creature lunged. The world cracked open. Steel met shadow, light met darkness. The battle shook the mountains, tore the sky apart. Marin stood at the center, her light flaring, whispering spells older than time itself. By the blood of the moon, by the love that burns, return to dust. But the dark child only turned, its gaze sliding toward her. The healer reborn, the flame that refuses to die. It struck her with a wave of black fire. She screamed, falling to her knees. Marin! The Alpha roared, his heart splitting as he caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin glowed, her veins turning silver blue. She looked up, breath shaking. It's inside me! What? The curse! It's trying to claim me instead. He pulled her close, his voice breaking. No, I won't let it. Her hand rose to his cheek. You can't fight both of us, my love. One of us has to end it. No, he whispered, tears in his eyes. Not again. Not this way. Her lips brushed his ear. Remember the promise. Before he could stop her. She pressed her glowing palm to his heart. The mark between them ignited. Light exploded. For a moment, there was no sky, no ground, no curse. Only two souls, intertwined in love and fury. The dark child screamed, its voice tearing the heavens, before dissolving into the silver storm. When the light faded, the Alpha King was alone, kneeling in the ashes. Her cloak lay beside him, still warm. He whispered her name once. Then again, but the wind did not answer. Days passed. The kingdom lived. The darkness was gone, but he could not find her. Every night, he walked to the ruins of the shrine, whispering to the moon. Take me instead. Just bring her back. The moon never replied. Only the soft cry of wolves in the distance, singing her name through the trees. And sometimes when the wind turned cold, he could swear he heard her voice. Love doesn't die, my Alpha. It only changes shape. The world had changed since the night the darkness died. The forests had grown quiet. The rivers shimmered with silver light again, and the wolves, the children of the moon, sang softly beneath the stars, as though mourning and celebrating all at once. But the Alpha King, he no longer roared. He no longer smiled. He carried silence like armor and grief like a crown. Every dawn, he climbed to the highest tower, waiting for a sign. A whisper, a glimmer, anything. Just once, he murmured to the horizon. Let me hear her voice again. The sky never answered, but the wind sometimes did. Years passed. The kingdom thrived. Stories of the silver flame spread far and wide. Tales of a healer who defied death, who loved a king enough to burn for him. Children grew up hearing her name, Marin, the moon's beloved. But only he knew the truth, that she wasn't a story. She was the only reason the world still breathed. He had built her a sanctuary, a garden beneath the moon. Every flower glowed faintly in the dark. Each one grown from the ashes of the night she saved them all. And every night, he spoke to her as though she could still hear. You were right, he whispered. Love doesn't end. It just finds new ways to stay. One night, the moon rose larger than ever before, full and bright, like a silver heart beating across the sky. The wolves howled. The stars flickered. And the air changed. The garden began to glow. Softly at first, then brighter. He turned, his heart pounding. "Marin?" The light took shape, petals lifting into the air, swirling around him. A voice, soft, familiar, whispered through the glow. "You kept your promise." He froze, his breath caught in his throat. "Say it again." The light shimmered, and from it a figure stepped forward. Not a ghost, not a dream, Marin, dressed in silver, eyes bright with tears that looked like stars, her smile trembling, radiant. He fell to his knees, disbelief breaking through every wall he'd built. "I'm not dreaming?" She knelt before him, touching his face. "No, not this time." He gripped her hand, afraid she'd vanish again. "But how?" Her voice was a whisper of moonlight. "The moon owed me a promise too, that when the world healed, I could return, not as flesh, but as light. A soul unbound," he smiled through tears. "Then stay as long as the moon shines." She brushed her thumb against his cheek, her eyes soft with eternal love. "I am the moon now, my love. Wherever its light falls, I'll be there." He leaned forward, their foreheads touching. "You've haunted every breath I've taken since the moment you left. And you've loved me through every death I've faced," she whispered. "We've defied everything, even the end." The sky trembled as the first light of dawn broke. Silver and gold merged across the horizon, washing over them both. Marin looked up, smiling faintly. "It's time." He shook his head, voice breaking. "No, don't leave again." She kissed his brow, her lips like the touch of sunlight. "I'm not leaving. I'm becoming everything." He closed his eyes, holding her hand until it faded into the morning air, until the last whisper of her voice became the wind itself. "When you look at the dawn, remember, it's me." The Alpha King stood there long after the light faded, the tears on his face shining in the new sun. The wolves gathered around him, silent, waiting. He looked up at the glowing sky, a single tear of silver light streaking across the heavens, and he smiled. She kept her promise. From that day on, the kingdom knew peace. The curse never returned, and when the moon rose full, the people said they could see two shadows walking together in its glow, a king and a healer, bound forever. Beyond time, beyond death, the silver flame and the Alpha King, a love that even destiny bowed before. The silver flame and the Alpha King, their story wasn't just about love. It was about fate, defied, about pain, transformed, and about two souls who refused to let even death pull them apart, because sometimes love doesn't ask to be remembered. It becomes the memory the world never forgets. If you felt their love, if you believed in their promise, then let their story live again, in your heart, in your dreams, and in the light of every moon that rises. And remember, every ending is just another beginning. If you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this journey with others who believe in love that never dies. Because somewhere, another story is waiting to rise under the same silver moon.